this video, I'm going to talk about how to learn your law school outlines. Learning your law school outlines mostly just requires time. If you put in the time and use the strategy I'm going to give you, then you will be able to learn your outlines. Many students think to themselves, "Oh, I don't have a photographic memory," or "I'm just not good at memorizing." Most people don't have a photographic memory, and most people don't feel that they are good at memorizing. Here, the important thing is that you put in the time and use a strategy that works for you. Here is the strategy that we recommend. First, commit to learning one outline at a time. You don't want to start by sitting down with a stack of outlines. You will feel overwhelmed. Just take one outline at a time. For example, start with your torts outline. Next, divide your outline into manageable sections. Start with small sections of your outline, especially if memorizing is new to you. For example, if you are working on memorizing your torts outline, you might start with learning just the intentional torts: assault, battery, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, trespass, whatever your professor covers in class. Now, the best way to do this is to take one step at a time and try to learn the elements of the law. One way to learn the elements of each intentional tort is to simply cover up the elements and see if you can jot them down or say them out loud. Using assault as an example, an assault requires an act with intent to cause a harmful or offensive contact or an imminent apprehension of such contact, and an imminent apprehension directly or indirectly results. Read those elements, then cover them up and see how many you can write or recite from memory. The first time, you probably won't be able to remember very many because memorization takes time and repetition. But after you review the elements of assault several times, you will start to remember some of them. You will find that you can write them down or recite them from memory. Pretty soon, you will know the elements of assault. Then you can move on to battery, which, by the way, is very similar to assault. You will find that if you organize your outline in a certain way, for example, listing all the intentional torts together, you will often find elements that overlap. For example, all intentional torts require intent, and your professor will probably define intent in a certain way. So, in essence, you will have already memorized one element that you will need for all the intentional torts. In addition to writing the elements down or reciting them, you might want to create a chart, table, diagram, or other visual to help you learn the law. It might help you to think of a mnemonic or rhymes or songs. You can quiz others or have others quiz you, especially if you belong to a study group. Keep in mind that before you memorize the law, you need to understand the law. If you are trying to memorize the elements of assault, but you really have no idea what the elements mean, then memorization is not going to be effective. You must understand the rule before you can effectively memorize it. Usually, you will be able to understand the rule from your professor's lecture. However, if the professor's explanations are vague or difficult to understand, it can be helpful to seek outside resources, such as a supplement, Google, your professor's office hours, a study group, or a tutor. Another way to understand the law that will make it easier to memorize is to pay attention to any examples or hypotheticals that your professor gives. And understanding the policy reasons behind the law often makes it easier to memorize. Some students use flashcards to help them memorize the law. Flashcards can be a good tool for memorization. However, there is a downside to flashcards, in that flashcards do not give you the big picture. For example, if you are studying intentional torts, Unless you are going through the flashcards in the same order as your outline, you may miss the overall structure and big picture that your outline provides. Flashcards can be helpful for memorizing small sections of an outline rather than an entire outline, partly because creating flashcards can be time-consuming. Once you have memorized one section of your outline, you're ready to go to the next section of the outline. For example, if you started with intentional torts in your torts outline, you might move on to negligence. You can use the same memorization strategies that you used for the first section, or you can try a different strategy to see if that one works better for you. While you are memorizing, it is important to take breaks. Memorization is hard work and can be exhausting. Taking 15-minute breaks every 45 minutes or so will allow your brain to rest in between memorization sessions. Once you have finished with your memorization for the day, go back through your outline and review what you have memorized so far. Be aware that at this point, you probably will not feel like you have fully memorized all the material. You may still struggle to remember all the elements. It is not going to be perfect. However, each time you will probably remember more than you did last time. Now, it is time to put the outline away. Don't think about it for a while and move on to something else. Getting a good night's sleep is very important for memorization. Sleep helps your brain file away the information that you learned while you were awake. Sleep will help you remember all that information that you worked so hard to learn. When you wake up the next morning and look at the outline again, it will almost certainly be easier for you to write down or recite the elements. You will likely feel much more confident about what you have learned after a good night's sleep. The next step is to consistently review the outline. You might think, okay, I'm done. I know the intentional torts. But you are not done because your brain will forget what it does not review. So, it is important to occasionally review the whole outline. And then, finally, continue reviewing your outlines throughout the semester. It can be helpful to create a retention schedule that allows you to slowly review each outline so that you don't forget what you have learned. This process does not need to be super time-consuming or exhausting because the hard part is done. You have already learned the information. Now, you just need to review it throughout the semester to make sure you don't forget it. Even if you don't feel like you're good at memorization, I think you will be surprised if you use this strategy and these techniques. You will discover which techniques work best for you, and that will help you feel more confident about learning the law.